Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I'm joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are you today?
I am well, Lake. How are you?
I am doing pretty good. Pretty exciting for this episode. We have an exciting itinerary and an exciting guest.
Yes, I think our most, besides the host, the guest that has been on the most, I believe, is going to be on today. And it's one of our favorite destinations that we get to talk about.
Absolutely. With that, let's go ahead and welcome our guest to the show, Bryan. Bryan, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Have I earned that title of most frequent guest now?
I'm certain that you have. I mean, I could be wrong, but I doubt it. You've been on a lot.
Okay. Well, it's because you're so fun to talk to, and there's nothing quite like talking about cruising, right?
That's right. And we always give, for the listeners, priority to our Patreons to come on and record. So we appreciate your support for all these years, but really, we just really like you also.
Well, thank you.
Well, Bryan, why don't we go ahead and jump into it? What itinerary did you book, and what made you and your family want to book this one?
Yeah, so we've been going through the bucket list cruises, and Alaska has always been on the list. But Alaska has been traditionally quite expensive. And then when I saw that they were announcing this summer, we were going to have the Magic and the Wonder, two ships going to Alaska. That means more capacity, and the prices were a little bit lower. And then they ended up even doing a better deal for people who had placeholders. We decided this is the time to do it. Let's take the Magic to Alaska. We've done all the ships. We've done all the original ships twice, except for the Magic. So we've been wanting to get back on the Magic for a long time. And so this kind of lets us do two things. We get to finally get to Alaska. We get to be back on the Magic. It was just super exciting to make that all happen.
And who did you cruise with?
So we cruised with my whole family. So this is me and my wife and my 4 kids. This was actually my oldest's graduation cruise / senior trip. This was also cruise number 10. So we did our first cruise on the Magic and our becoming platinum cruise on the Magic. That kind of seemed appropriate to bookend our DCL journey that way. So this is really scary. So there were 3 adults on this trip because my oldest is 18. Though part of the reason to go to Vancouver, you're not an adult till you're 19 in Vancouver. So it gave me one little more time. We had my 18-year-old, my 16-year-old son, my 14-year-old daughter, and then my 10, almost 11-year-old son. This was also the first cruise that I had 0 kids go to the kids club. Youngest was so close to Edge, we wavered him up and let him go to Edge. I'm getting a little ahead there, but he didn't want to go to the Oceaneers Club one last time. So
was he 10 when the trip started?
Yes, he was 10 the whole trip. Yeah, he hasn't quite turned 11, but we're close. And so...
Well, let's go ahead and jump into it then. How did your family get up to Vancouver? And did you do any pre or post days before or after your sailing?
We did. So we have this awesome travel agent who introduced us when we went to Europe to Delta Vacations packages where you can bundle your airfare and hotel, and it tends to work well for international trips. So we did that again and flew into Vancouver 3 nights in advance. The World Cup is going on up there and rates were kind of crazy. So we did all of our extra stuff on the front side before the World Cup really got going. That was a better thing than trying to stay longer. So we flew direct up to Vancouver 3 nights ahead. And then we stayed at the Sheraton Wall Centre Hotel, which ended up being a beautiful hotel in downtown. It's a little bit further from the port than some, but it was very walkable to everything we wanted to do. And we actually ended up with 2 rooms. So one of the challenges especially for families, a lot of cities, you're going to get double beds in the hotels. And if you've got, you're trying to share a bed, a double bed is pretty cozy. So we actually booked 2 rooms there. And one of the rooms was with 2 queens, which was nice to find. It ended up being that room type was a suite. So it was actually 2 separate bedrooms with a queen in each. And a little larger room was nice on the corner, beautiful room. And then we had a normal 2 double bed room that ended up being right next door. It wasn't connecting, but it was right next door. So that all worked out really, really well. And then we did a lot of fun activities in Vancouver, which I could just real quickly jump into a couple of the highlights if you'd like.
Go for it.
So we did go down to Capilano Suspension Bridge Park. That's talked about quite a bit, so I won't talk a ton about that other than they have a free shuttle from downtown. So we just walked and took the free shuttle there and back, and that was great. If you like going through forests and looking at scenery, but having a little bit of a different way to do it, they're awesome there. They've got treetop kind of tree houses with bridges between them. They have a overlook that goes over a cliff edge that's really cool. And then, of course, they have the big suspension bridge that they're famous for. But it is very much a go enjoy nature sort of thing. It's a little bit, if you have a fear of heights, maybe that's going to challenge you a little bit because there's some heights. But one of my kids, I think, was hoping it was a little bit more adventurous, like almost ropes course like, and there's nothing like that there. It is just walking, enjoying nature just in some different ways, not to the level of like a ropes course or zip line or anything like that. Other than Capilano, we did do the flyover Vancouver, which is like soaring over California, but it's a slightly different ride system, a little bit longer show, and you go over Canada, or I think they have a couple other shows right now. We did it because I think it's all summer on Tuesdays, you get $10 off per ticket. And so when I saw that, I kind of fit it in, which it was kind of one more thing. We overloaded our Tuesday a little bit because of that, but it is a cool thing. It's not a must do in my mind. If you love soaring over California or want another thing to do, it was definitely fun. The other thing we did, which is kind of a more unique one I haven't heard of before, I ran across this company called Vancouver Mysteries, and they do like these outdoor escape room type city tour things. And so basically the way it works is they give you a kit. And we did the superhero villain themed one, and we were trying to stop the supervillain. And you use this kit to kind of solve problems like in a typical escape room, but you're actually walking around the waterfront of Vancouver and then just recording your answers on a sheet that you can take back to them. There are a couple things. I thought it was fun. It was very, very well done. Like we had the whole guidebook was like a comic book with illustrations and everything. And the whole kit was very well put together. The thing we hit is we were just done with the flyover, and I thought we were going to just go do it there in that Vancouver waterfront area, but they don't tell you where to meet until a couple days before, and it turned out we had to go meet in a hotel lobby a couple blocks away, so we had a lot of walking. We had to walk all the way there, get the kit and start, and then walk all the way back, which was a little much on the kids. And then the other thing is it's not like an escape room because you're outside, and so to score it, you have to go kind of fill out this worksheet, and that felt a little bit too much like school for some of my kids. And so they were like, they love escape rooms, but they were like, this isn't the same because you're doing the same sort of puzzles, but you are doing it and filling out a sheet. So it's a little bit different, but we got to see some monuments, learn a little bit about the history of Vancouver. Like it was very, very well done. So if that's something that might interest you, they have a couple different themes and different activities they do, but Vancouver Mysteries, it's a fun, different way to explore a city.
That is super interesting.
So that was day one. I'll also give a shout out. We had really good food throughout Vancouver. So we ate at, I think it was 49th Parallel Cafe for breakfast. We did Cactus Club Cafe for lunch, and we did Tap and Barrel for dinner. And all of our meals were excellent. And I noticed part of it, I think, is the US to Canadian exchange rate, but food was quite reasonable in Vancouver, which I also appreciated. For day two, we did probably our favorite kind of like port excursion tour ever. We did a Sea-Doo tour through the Vancouver harbor. So there's a company called Vancouver Water Adventures, and they do Sea-Doo tours, and I think they do sea kayaks and paddle boards and other sort of things. And you can both rent or do tours from them. We did a tour. My oldest two were able to drive their own Sea-Doos, and then my wife and I had our younger two on the back with us, and they took us out across English. It starts out in Granville Island, so we went kind of through that little river thing there, and then across English Bay, past the lighthouse point and saw the lighthouse up into Howe Sound. Sometimes they say you can see wildlife and stuff. We didn't see any wildlife. The seas were a little bit choppy for us, so it took us a little bit longer to cross the swells, but it actually makes for a fun ride. They were super good at helping sure everybody was comfortable. We have different levels of experience in my family on Sea-Doos, and they made sure everyone was comfortable, made us feel safe. We got wetsuits, and they gave my kids who didn't have sunglasses little safety glasses to handle the sea spray. And so they were just a real first-class operation, thinking about everything. One of the guides took photos the whole time, and photos were included. He just airdropped them to me at the end. And so just a really great tour, but it was so fun to go across that harbor on Sea-Doos. We got to go past the big, cargo ships that are anchored there, which was cool. Just beautiful scenery and just a lot of fun. So I think that was probably one of my favorite sort of tour things we've ever done. And I can't recommend their company enough. The guides we had were just phenomenally good at working with us and helping us feel comfortable and have a good time.
That sounds so cool. So then the next day, is that the day you get on the ship?
Yep. So the next day was embarkation day. You're probably going to ask how we got to the port. Of course, we decided that we wanted to, ask what would the OG host of the DCL podcast do?
Did you walk?
We walked.
I thought you said it was going to be too far.
So One of the things we didn't talk about, we took the SkyTrain from the airport, and I thought the walk from the SkyTrain station to our hotel was not going to be too bad, but it was kind of uphill and kind of a long walk. And so I had originally thought, oh, we'll take the SkyTrain down, one more stop. There's a stop right by the port. And we decided we really didn't want to walk back to the SkyTrain station, but we realized because we walked down to Canada Place a couple times that the walk actually to our hotel was actually not so bad. And so we just walked. I asked everybody, do you want to try and figure out a taxi or anything? And they're like, let's just walk it. We've done it 2 or 3 times now, so we might as well just do it. So we walked to the port. Vancouver, Canada Place, it's a little bit different. So I walked up and I'm like, where do we go to drop off our luggage? How do we do this if you're just arriving not in a car or on DCL transportation? But they had staff members outside that directed us. It is a little different because we had to walk quite a ways and in quite a ways before we dropped the luggage. I was like, I hope you don't think we're carrying all this luggage on, but they did have a luggage drop. They did direct us. Everything's good. It's just a little bit of a different layout because you have to go drop your luggage, check in, then go to another floor to do security and customs, and then you get to the waiting area. But we didn't stand in line much, and it was super smooth, just different from any other port.
Well, then it's been quite a few sailings since you've been on the Magic. What was it like embarking on her again?
Well, number one, I was super excited for it. As we're walking by, I did notice on the bow art of the Magic, they actually have Mickey and Minnie on a Sea-Doo. I had never noticed that before, but after we had just done one, I saw that. I was like, oh, that's really cool. But then as we walked in, the Disney ship smell hit really hard. And I'm like, we're back on a ship. But then my next reaction was, boy, the atrium is small. It's been a while since we've been on the Magic. It does have a smaller atrium, but it is a wonderful ship, and we really enjoyed our time on the Magic. It's just a little bit different if you've been on the Wish or the Fantasy and Dream more recently.
We have some amazing ports that we definitely want to make sure we have plenty of time to highlight. So we will not be going through your entire embarkation. We will do some highlights from around the Disney Magic. Let's go ahead and start with what staterooms you booked and how that worked for you and your family.
Yeah, we had 2 ocean view staterooms on deck 2 forward. We've never been in the forward section before. I think these were actually technically a class down from what we usually do. They were 9Cs instead of 9Bs. They worked out great. They were connecting cabins, just a big porthole. It wasn't the porthole you can sit in. We were a little disappointed about that, but it was fine. The location on a small ship, forward versus mid, doesn't really matter that much. And being on deck 2 and having to climb up isn't so bad. I know everyone says do a veranda in Alaska. And while I can see that, I would rather, the price difference was significant, and I'd rather save that money for excursions. So I don't regret at all having an ocean view. Like, if I had all the money in the world, yeah, I'd do a veranda, but an ocean view was fine. The biggest difference I think we ran into is we love to sit on deck 4 normally. And in Alaska, sometimes deck 4 can be a little bit cold. And maybe if you had a veranda, you could go inside easier. But the furniture on deck 4 is more comfortable, and it makes it easier to go back and forth between the 2 sides of the ship. So if wildlife's on one side or another, that's one of the advantages, I think, when you're not just sitting on your veranda. You can move to watch the wildlife a little easier.
Well, then let's go ahead and touch on dining around the ship really quick. Did you have any highlights from your rotational dining?
I think a couple things I'll say. Number one, the food on the Magic was just overall really, really good. This was, I mentioned, my daughter's graduation cruise, so we got to take her to Palo Brunch for the first time, and I think it was our best ever Palo experience. The food was just extra good on the Magic. We had a great server, and I think we had figured out how to pace ourselves a little better as well, so really enjoyed Palo Brunch. I liked all of the food. They had some halibut our last night in Lumiere's. It's kind of that same night they had the lobster that was really, really good. I'll mention that as a highlight. There have been some menu changes. They took away one of my favorite desserts. They have some new sundaes that are quite good. And overall, I enjoyed the food. I'm one who's said I'd like them to change the menu. I just noticed they got rid of some of my favorites when they changed the menu. So that's the complaint about, telling them to change the menus is, you never know what you're going to get. But food overall was very good.
And where did you find your family doing like your lunches and breakfasts throughout the sailing?
We tend to be Cabanas fans. We did enjoy the shawarma and the deck food. Oh, that's one thing I should say. I think the pizza on the Magic is the best pizza of any of the ships.
What'd you guys think of Tangled, the Rapunzel's? Had you dined at Rapunzel's before?
We had on our very first cruise, it was on the Magic, but we only got one of the nights in Tangled, not both, because it was a 5-night. So this gave us a chance to see both shows. I enjoy the shows in Tangled. I thought they were fun. I like the Thug Night a little bit more. I did like the food in Rapunzel's as well. And I feel like that Thug Night, especially the interaction with them, is a lot of fun. Though the party planner on the Lantern Night was entertaining. We had some fun with him as well.
I love it. Well, let's jump around to entertainment around the ship. What entertainment or activities did you and your family find yourself doing?
So I think there were two big highlights for me. One is there's a pianist. His name's Josh. I think he's fairly well known in the DCL community. I can't remember. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it starts with an F. He's often plays the piano on the smaller ships, the Wonder and the Magic. We've had him on cruises before. He is super talented. And the first time I think we met with him, we were standing in line for photos and he started to play and my daughter sang along a little bit with one of the Disney songs and he encouraged that. Well, fast forward now, she very musically inclined, done all sorts of choir and musical theater, and that's what she's going to go study. And we saw him on the ship again, and she got to sing with him again. And one of the other cast members, entertainment, kind of joined in. They did this whole Phantom thing, and it was just really, really fun. And she super enjoyed it. And, you know, it was one of those like magical moments there that we really enjoyed. So we listened to him play the piano quite a bit. We also, of course, went to all the Broadway shows. One special thing on this sailing, they had the Broadway Stars at Sea series that they're doing now, where they bring a couple of Broadway stars on. And this isn't just a guest performer that performs in the normal show that they've had in the past. They actually did a main stage Walt Disney Theater performance one night. They did an adults only performance one night, and they did a Q&A. Let's see, it was David and Sarah were the two stars. His big break was he replaced Donny Osmond in the national tour of Joe's and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and Sarah was the second Belle on Broadway. So those were kind of like their two big breaks, but then they've done all sorts of other things. There were Lights in the Piazza. Oh, and David also workshopped Fiyero before it opened on Broadway in Wicked. So like these were like, you know, top-notch stars. And they were so approachable and so friendly. They connected with my daughter. David actually heard her singing karaoke and came in to tell her what a great job she did. And then we took photos with them. And like, it was just this really magical experience to get to know them and connect. They were on our same dining rotation too. So we'd see them in the dining room. And they were super talented, but super gracious and willing to connect and answer questions and talk to you and take a picture if you saw them around the ship. And I really enjoyed that. The Broadway Stars series is a really cool thing. I'm glad Disney is doing.
I love that they're bringing on people. So the Broadway series sounds amazing. And that when they just bring on people for these longer cruises to give a little bit of an extra bit of entertainment, I think that's really where Disney can use its portfolio to its advantage for these cruises. So that was a fantastic ad. I love that. I love that they did a Q&A and everything. We did one of those back on the Panama Canal, and it was still so memorable. And it was 8 years ago.
Yeah, it's just so fun to connect with them and to hear their talents and see. Yeah, it really up-leveled the experience on the cruise, I think.
And what kind of stuff did the kids get up to during the day?
So it's always interesting to see who does what. My 14-year-old usually is not one for the kids club, but she met a group of friends and they hung out all the time. My youngest, as I mentioned, we let him go up to Edge because in theory he could then go with his sister together, though they ended up going their separate ways most of the time. He loved Edge. He had a friend. He was constantly wanting to be an Edge. My oldest was a little sad. She had aged out of vibe. The 1820 activities did never seem to be scheduled at quite the right time. So I think there was a lot of just kind of watching the scenery. We did all go do the aquadunk, even though it was cold. Actually, our first sea day, I called it a polar plunge because it was so cold out, and I did the aquadunk. But then we did it on our last sea day. It was much warmer that day. So there's a little bit of pool time. We did some trivia. Disney Tunes trivia is fun. It's especially fun when you do the live version. Josh played the piano for that, and he gets a little carried away and keeps playing sometimes. So it helps you figure out what the songs are. That was kind of nice. He didn't always know when to stop.
How'd you guys do?
We did quite well. We just had a couple songs that were a little more obscure, older movies or whatever that we messed up, but we did quite well. Yeah, the Alaska all sailings also involve a lot of just, looking at the scenery. The last day, one of my other magical moments last day, so it's kind of interesting. I think we were on deck 9, and we heard the ship sound its horn, but not the, magical. It was like the mean mad horn for quite a while, like the get out of the way, something's going on horn. And we realized there was a small fishing boat that was trying to cut off the magic. And, you really don't want to cut off a cruise ship. They can't stop very fast. And so they had to try and get them out of their attention. But my wife went up to deck 10 forward to go see what had happened and see the ship, and then realized the views up there were just phenomenal. And so I went up and we spent a bunch of the time just very front of the ship because you could see dolphins. We saw dolphins on either side of the ship. They had playing in the sport court that's right back there, like all this 80s rock music, like the soundtrack from the Pirate Party on the Wish, basically. Wasn't really, but that sort of music. We're listening to that music. We're looking at this incredible scenery. It was a bright, sunny day. That was a fun memory. And we were catching some wildlife as we went, which was super cool. But that was a super fun thing, just listening to that music and looking at the scenery and watching the wildlife.
I love it. Any other highlights from your time on board the ship before we start to move into Alaska?
There were some crew members that were just phenomenal. I did take the time most evenings to go interact with the ship's officers, which I've said that before. It's a lot of fun to talk to them. There was a couple I recognized from Europe, and one that when I heard their role, I mentioned I had made friends with that role on ship in Europe. Oh, that's a good friend of mine. So it's kind of fun to connect with the crew that way. We did actually go to on the very last night, entertainment thing I've never done before that. What is it? The farewell show. I can't remember. See you real soon. And I didn't realize cast from the Broadway shows comes out in their costumes for that. So I've often not really worried about a last minute picture with the characters, but they actually had that cast out there and we got to go talk to the cast and tell them what a phenomenal job they did. We had a brand new cast. It was their first cruise, what I understood. And like the guy who played the evil stepfather fairy godfather in Twice Charmed was phenomenal. And we got to go meet him and some of the other actors. And that was a really cool thing that you can do in that farewell last night thing that I recommend, even if you don't want to see characters, go meet the cast.
You have a wonderful day at sea to start your sailing. And then your next day is a little bit of a day at sea and a little bit of your Alaska excitement. It's your glacier day. What glacier did they take you to?
We went up and saw Dawes Glacier. And, this is the first time the Magic's in Alaska, so this isn't quite as impressive as it sounds, but we got the closest to that glacier the Magic has ever gotten.
Boom.
Well, how was this day for you and your family?
Glacier Day was really cool. I will say, I know some people talk about having really cool, good weather in Alaska. We definitely hit traditional Alaska weather. So the weather was a little rainy and cold on Glacier Day. It meant that the character meet and greets were not on deck 10, like the characters in their outfits, they were on 9. We did not prioritize those character meet and greets, wanting to just enjoy the scenery and look for wildlife. But randomly, my kids got stuck in the elevator with Mickey in his Alaska gear, and they got a selfie with him. And I ran into him on the stairs later in the cruise. I don't know why he was on the stairs that time, but so we did notice that they were out a couple times on the cruise besides just Glacier Day. There were long lines on Glacier Day. That's why we didn't meet them then.
You can ask the character attendants when they're out in that outfit. A lot of times, like when the Wonder is doing Glacier, it's usually a little bit more in the middle of the cruise versus in the beginning. Then the next day, they'll be in their outfits. So I'm curious if they kept the same schedule where the whole next day they were still in their Glacier outfits, but meeting inside the atrium.
Trying to remember, I want to say it was later in the cruise that I ran into Mickey in his rain gear and I saw Minnie in her, Eskimo costume.
Well, because if it was cold, they needed to dress appropriately.
Exactly. So I don't remember exactly what day I saw it, but it wasn't the next day after Glacier Day because that was a pretty long port day, but it was later in the cruise. So if you really want those pictures, like you do need to do it on Glacier Day. But if you're kind of like, I get it if I can, I don't want to wait in line, there are other opportunities. We spent most of Glacier Day on deck 4 watching. We saw the most incredible orcas that swam along the side of the ship for quite a while. And at first I was like, are these dolphins or are they orca? But they swam along long enough and we could see the coloring and they were orcas. We saw some whales. One thing that we did do is we bought some binoculars for this trip. We didn't buy anything super nice, just, nice rating, decent price on Amazon. But I was really glad I had binoculars. I had some whales wave their tails at me while I was looking through the binoculars that I might not have seen quite as well had I not. The trade-off is always, I want to get a picture, but I also want to see. And so you kind of have to decide what's more important to you, to get pictures or to see things. But the binoculars were totally worth it. We did the Glacier Explorer boat, so we got to go really close to the glacier. Obviously, how close you get is both on the ship and on the Glacier Explorer is dependent on, ice conditions, sea conditions, but that's where we lucked out. We got the closest of the season thus far. They had seals on the ice floats that we were able to see through the binoculars. That was fun on the Glacier Explorer. And then just watching the ice. But that was really cool to see how close we got to the ice. And we didn't see any major calving, but there's a lot of minor calving that we saw. So we definitely saw some of that. Some of the ice ends up in very interesting shapes. I think I posted on the Patreon group, there was a ice that looked like a giant duck. And I have no idea how little ice flow would melt to be a giant duck, but that's what it looked like. Definitely, the Glacier Day is a really interesting experience. The Glacier Explorer, for a possible once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, was worth it. We felt we got really close. We liked it. They do want you to feel like you get your money's worth. So after we're done with the Glacier, we were kind of ready to get back to the ship. We went on the later departure, so the ship was heading out of the away from the Glacier when we had to catch up to it. And I noticed they went and took us off some side channels to see waterfalls and possibly chase a whale, but we didn't really see the whale. And I was kind of like, I'm kind of ready to go back, but they want you to feel you get your money's worth, and they take you back basically exactly when Disney wants them back. So that's just something to be aware of, because it gets a little bit, I think you had even mentioned it, Christy, for the kids, it get a little bit like, okay, we're sitting here waiting after the climax of the Glacier was done.
And like some of that scenery is absolutely stunning. And then they'll do like the glacieritas and stuff like that. So they do different stuff. But if A, that's not something that you're interested in, and or B, like when I did it, I think they were like cash only for one. But it just, yes, it drags on a bit.
But I think it's one of those things, your mileage may vary how close you get without the ship. I don't know that I would do it again if we went to Alaska again, because we've done it once now. And we had such an incredible experience because we were able to get really close. But sometimes, it doesn't get you that much closer depending on the sea conditions. But Glacier Day is really a cool experience, though. That is, I think, one of the highlights for Alaska, is seeing this nature, this natural beauty, this thing that you really can't see very many other places. So don't plan it's a normal sea day where you end up wanting to watch and see the scenery. At least I felt I did most of the day. So you feel pretty busy. And if you're doing character greetings, it's even more busy. We did see Coda, by the way, from Brother Bear, came out on deck for a little bit, just on deck 4 walking around. That wasn't a scheduled thing. He just kind of randomly appeared.
I'm glad that you guys enjoyed the Glacier Explorer as well. But it is finally time to get your feet onto Alaska itself with Skagway. What did you have planned for this day?
Yeah, with Skagway, we ended up booking outside of Disney because we had 2 things we wanted to do, and the timing for the Disney departures didn't work out quite right for us. So we went through, I think it was called Alaska Shore Excursions. It's one of the excursion companies there. And I think they were kind of subcontracting out to the people who ran these. They do have a guarantee, I noticed when I booked, that they guarantee they'll get you back to the ship or help you so you don't feel like you're risking things. But we've done enough outside of Disney that didn't really matter to me one way or the other. The first thing we did is the White Pass and Yukon Railway. We just did kind of the summit and back loop, which is about a 2.5 hour, takes you up to the summit and back. We had to, if you booked it through Disney, they will often back the train cars right by the ship. We had to walk, a little bit further to the depot, which wasn't a big deal. I wasn't sure. I'm a huge train fan, so I was just excited for this, but I kind of wonder, is everybody else going to think it's cool? It is pretty incredible scenery. And my one daughter and I were out on the vestibule, the outside part of the car, taking pictures almost the whole time and videos. And it is just a really cool experience going up there through the mountains. It's one of those scenery things. They do have a narrator that was talking about and narrating some of the history and stuff. If you're a train fan, it is really, really cool. But even if you just want to view the nature, it's very cool. The only thing I wish they only do it once and more expensive is they do it on steam trains sometimes. We were with one of the diesels, so as a train person, doing it with a steam train would have been maybe more fun. But that departure happens once a day and the timing didn't work. Whereas they have like 8 departures a day. So they do it quite a bit during the day. It's a busy, popular attraction, but I can see why it's definitely a fun thing to do. And then after the train, we got back and we had a little bit of time to walk away around Skagway, do a little shopping. We went and had lunch at the Skagway Brewing Company, and we enjoyed our food there. I got a really good, there was a fish chowder I got, and I can't remember the other thing I got, but everyone liked their food. It was a good place. It was getting pretty busy, though. I'm glad we went there a little bit earlier rather than later. After lunch, we walked back and we met our next tour right in front of the ship, and this was a sled dog experience. But this was the Mushers Camp. That's like the summer camp for dogs. So you go a little bit a ways outside of town and they take you up, and then you have to transfer to these like giant ex-military trucks. They call them unigogs or something like that. And they take you up this trail up the mountain to where they have a summer camp for sled dogs. And you get to actually ride, and it's kind of like a golf cart with wheels. And the musher stands in the back with the brake, and the sled dogs take you around this trail up there. That's part of their exercise summer camp regimen. So you get a ride, be pulled by sled dogs, but not on the snow. And it was super cool. And then you get to meet the musher, and you get to meet all the dogs. And that was one of the things my son really wanted to do, was actually be pulled by sled dogs. And it was really cool to actually see the dogs working up close and get to meet them. And then they take you down and they teach you a little bit about them. They have a retired sled dog you can pet, and then they take you over to the puppies. So you get to hold the sled dog puppies, of course, which is also really cool. And that was just all around a great excursion. Our driver who took us there and back on the bus gave like running narration the whole way, and it was really fun to talk to as well. So I thought that was another great shore excursion.
Did you book that one with Disney?
No, that was also booked through this third party, and that's why I did it. Disney has, so they have a couple sled dog experiences where you have to read the fine print, you don't get pulled. They had like one departure that was actually, I think, the same thing, but the timing didn't work for us to do that if we wanted to do something else. Whereas through this third party, there were more times, and so we were able to do sled dogs in the afternoon and train in the morning, and it was just really cool. So if you're going to book with Disney, they did have this. I think it sold out pretty quick. I think even being gold, I think it was sold out when I looked. But you do have to read the description, because some of the sled dogs take you to a different sled dog place. You get to watch them pull a cart, but you don't get to ride on it. This one was the actual summer camp. It's how a lot of the mush teams, I was talking to the musher, it was her sled dogs. This is how she makes money to pay for it, is they come to the summer camp. It's good training for them, but then they get a cut of all the money for the tourists coming, and it helps them buy the food for the sled dogs and do all that. They actually camp up there, and that's kind of like their whole summer thing. And so if you want a bigger sled dog experience without going like the helicopter out of Juneau to the ice thing that I've heard they have, this is a good way to do it.
Packed day for Skagway.
Yeah.
It was. Skagway is like 8 to 8, I think. It was a long day in port.
I love it. Yeah, what a great port. And then your next port is a little bit different, Icy Strait. What did you get up to here?
Yeah, so originally we had scheduled the Ocean Raft Adventure, which is kind of like the inflatable Zodiac boat tour where you can go whale watching. We did something similar in Cabo, and we're really excited to try it up here because I saw they'd put you in an exposure suit and all that. But right after we boarded the Disney Magic, we got a message that this port excursion had been canceled because we had booked it through Disney, and the supplier was having mechanical problems. So with that out of the way, we didn't have anything first thing in the morning, and we ended up deciding maybe that was good because Skagway was a long day and we were tired, and Icy Strait started at like 8. We would have had to have been up super early. So we ended up getting off the ship and just kind of looking around at Icy Strait Point, because the other thing we had booked that day was the zip line, or the zip rider, because that looked really, really cool, and my family loves zip lines. And that was really, really cool. The thing about Icy Strait Point is it feels a lot like a ski resort. It is a very commercialized, built for tourist port. I heard one of the locals that work there talking. He kind of made it sound like we wanted the tourism dollars, but we didn't want them in our town. So the town that most of the people live in is a little ways away, not super far, but it's not where the ship docks. And then that way they can still have the tourism dollars, but not have all the tourists invade town. So it feels a little bit like a tourist trap. Things are kind of expensive. It's also kind of cool. They have a gondola that goes up the mountain. The scenery is breathtaking. Like, it's still a very beautiful location. And then they have a zip line that goes from the top of the mountain all the way down. I think it is the world's largest, or was the world's largest zip rider. They compare it. They show you're going up higher than the Empire State Building, and then you're going down. They have 6 lines, so my whole family got to race each other down. And it was really, really cool. Not cheap, but it was really cool. So we really enjoyed that part of it. Icy Strait Point is one of those ports where I'm like, I don't know that I need to go back again. There wasn't really a town to explore. Yes, they have some shopping. They've restored kind of the canneries like a little mall. And it's the old fish cannery. And so they have you can read about the history of fish canning in the area and all that. It's cool. You're going to pay a lot of money for anything you do there. Can't really do a whole lot on your own. I guess you could go hiking or walk around, but it's not like it's a real town per se. So wouldn't discourage me from having it on an itinerary, but it's not a port I need to do a second time. But if you like ziplining, it's worth doing at least once.
Yeah, you can walk into the local town there. It's like maybe a 20 or 30 minute walk there, but there's nothing there. Like, it is not built for tourists to go and do anything. It is literally just the place where the people live.
I did hear there are a few third-party, maybe boat tours or something that will pick you up if you go to Icy Strait, so you don't have to do a Disney excursion or something through Icy Strait Point. But I didn't look into that because we had already booked through Disney. As one of the downsides of booking through Disney does not guarantee your port excursion will happen. It can get canceled. We've had a couple cancellations in our time booking with Disney. That's kind of, there's always that risk. You don't have a guarantee. They'll guarantee you get back to the ship, but you don't have a guarantee it'll actually happen.
Well, then this moves you into your final port day, Ketchikan. What did you get up to here?
Yeah, so this one, we also got an email from Disney quite a ways in advance. The Magic, I think, had the suboptimal itineraries for Alaska this summer. So we were supposed to dock at Ward Cove, which is outside of Ketchikan, and take the bus in. But there was an issue with that. And so what they did instead is we didn't get in until 2 p.m. It meant we got to dock downtown, but we were only there from 2 to 7. So pretty small amount of time in Ketchikan, which is unfortunate because I think Ketchikan was my favorite town. We got off the ship and walked around. We went over to Creek Street. My kids smelled the Alaskan Crepe Company and were like, oh, we want a crepe. And I was like, we shouldn't be hungry. And I was like, wait, Lake said on an episode they're really good. Okay, let's try it out. And they were so good. We got dessert crepes and I was like, okay, absolutely glad that I didn't pass this up, that I listened to Lake and tried it.
And my friend just went there and she got a gluten-free crepe. So they even have gluten-free.
Yeah. So they were great. They aren't open super late because I was originally like, we were doing some shopping and I was like, oh, could we come back later when I might be hungry? And the answer was no, we had to do it then. But we did the crepe, we did the shopping, and then we went and did the lumberjack show. We bought our tickets. You can buy it through Disney as a port excursion. You can also buy direct because I didn't want to have to go back to the ship to meet, and I wasn't sure how that would work. So they actually have on there where you can book for the Disney show direct. You just have to be willing to prove to them you're with Disney because they don't want non-Disney guests going to the Disney time. It's the same price. You don't save any money. But we did that so that because I wasn't sure if they'd make me meet on board. I don't think they actually do, is what I heard. But at any rate, we then walked back and did the lumberjack show. My family enjoyed the lumberjack show. I wanted it to be more watching lumberjacks do cool things, but it's a little bit this kind of campy competition with a storyline. It is what it is. You do get to see lumberjacks do some cool things, but there was a lot of other stuff that was not as interesting to me. But it was a fun way to pass the time, and we really didn't have very long in port, so it wasn't like there were a ton of options given the shortened day in port. Then after that, we did some shopping.
Honestly, even if you had your normal time, no ship is in Ketchikan long. I feel like Ketchikan must have a limit. Because you either get there in the morning and leave at 2, or like you arrive at 2 and leave at 7. Like nobody's staying for a whole day.
The one interesting thing I did notice, though, was we were there till 7. When we got back from our shopping, the line to get on the ship was quite long. The tides had adjusted and they could only have one gangway open. And I was like, oh, we'll do some more shopping and see if the line goes down. And the line did not go down. And then I realized there's something else I wanted to buy. So my family got in line. And I went and did that, and I came back, and I was like, well, I'm just going to wait a little bit. It's the closest I've ever cut to being on the ship late, because I think I was there 10 minutes before leaving time was when I stepped on the ship, and the line was just as long as when I'd gotten in it. So they cut it kind of close. They're not going to leave you while you're in line, but it was a long line to get back on, which was interesting. But I think we only left maybe 10 minutes late, so they either figured out a way to move people through faster or eventually the line died down.
Yeah, Ketchikan is known for their tides, and actually every excursion that people do in Ketchikan could have crazy tides. So it's always something to keep in mind. If you're doing something that has you getting on a boat or leaving a boat, know that you might have a very steep incline in Ketchikan because they have crazy tides there.
It is a cool town, though. It looked like there was a lot of other stuff to do. And I don't know what excursion options there were besides the lumberjack show. I guess maybe you don't ever get a long day there, but it's definitely a place I'd like to go back. Skagway and Ketchikan are ports that I could go back to again, no problem.
We did one with birds. It was like a wildlife one, and there was like a scavenger hunt for kids and tons of bald eagles. And then later in the summer, you can do some bear type excursions. So
awesome. Well, between these amazing ports, do you have a favorite?
Ooh, if I had to walk around a town, it would be Ketchikan. If I think of which one I like the excursions the most, definitely Skagway.
Were there any other excursions at any of these ports that you would have been particularly interested in?
I think there was zip lining at another one that was like multiple zip lines. That might have been interesting. I kind of did want to do some sort of a ocean wildlife whale watching thing, but I didn't want a big whale watching boat. So if I hadn't signed up for that ocean raft, I would have probably tried to find like a private whale watching tour. That would have been so where you're not like on a big ship with a whole bunch of people. That would be interesting to me to go back and do next time.
Well, what an amazing set of ports here. One question I did have was, you mentioned your weather may have been less than favorable. How did your family prepare for that, and what did you pack for Alaska?
Yeah, I think this is the big thing. I didn't feel like it negatively impacted the experience because we were prepared for it. So the big things, I was glad we had waterproof shoes. We had gone to the Columbia outlet near us over the President's Day sale and got everybody waterproof shoes or hiking boots. We had good raincoats. The other thing is you just have to have layers. A lot of my kids like hoodies, and so a lot of them bought souvenir hoodies, but I found I was often, glad to have layers that I could take on and put off throughout the day. We did buy some rain pants. Rain pants can be kind of expensive. I don't think you have to have rain pants, but Costco had some pants that were just like a kind of a windbreaker material. So it's not jeans and it's not sweats. So it doesn't like absorb the water. Just being prepared to deal with water and deal with, varying temperatures throughout the day will make a big difference in your enjoyment in Alaska. And that really helped us out. The other thing is because of that, you do have a little bit more luggage you need to pack. So did check bags for everybody. We did do some laundry. And I did find in Europe that first day, everybody's trying to do laundry. In Alaska, first day, I don't think people had come in as early. And that actually worked out pretty well for us because we had been there a little bit early. There wasn't quite the fight in the laundry room, which was nice.
Was there anything that you hadn't packed that you wish you had brought?
I don't think so.
And along those lines, was there anything that you, in hindsight, would have planned differently now?
From a packing perspective, I think we did realize that you buy a bunch of hoodies, that's going to take a fair amount of space on your way back. The last minute, I decided to bring an empty carry-on bag and just check it so that we had someplace for souvenirs. That was really good. We did fill that all with, it was my wife's brilliant idea. We filled it with dirty clothes before we came on. So all our dirty clothes were in one thing and I put the laundry supplies in it. And then I should have carried it on. So I would have had it the second we got on board to start laundry. Instead, it just happened to be one of the first pieces of luggage that got delivered. But our luggage got delivered pretty late on this sailing. And if it had been one of the last, I would have been a little bit more perturbed. So those are a couple of things. Like when you think about what am I going to carry on to the Disney cruise versus what I'm going to check, you don't have the same considerations as an airplane flight. But think about not just what things like your medication and stuff that you should always carry on with you, but if there's something you're going to want pretty quickly, carry that on.
That is true. In Europe, I wish that I had carried on my dirty laundry because then I could have gotten right in. But by the time I tried to do laundry, and we needed to get laundry done pretty quickly, by the time I tried to do laundry, there were no washer machines. And it was like we were running around and we eventually it's like laundry is not for the weak on Disney Cruise Line on longer sailings like this. There were some intense laundry moments, it seemed. So I guess that's the advantage of the Wish class.
I was about to say, next year the Wish will be there and there's just one room.
Thank God for that, though. Like, so much better than literally running from like end to end of floors to see if you could find a laundry machine. I mean, they have a computer. So people listening, there is a machine in the laundry room that says these floors have machines available.
And just be kind, because I did hear there was some people who were like throwing people's clothes out of the washing, and also don't leave it in there for forever. But like sometimes the washer cycle and the dryer cycle don't align. And so I would look at when is the dryer going to be free? Because there's no reason for me to come back before then, which might mean it sat there for 10 minutes, but I can't put it in the dryer. So please don't just dump people's laundry on the floor. Apparently that happens some. I heard some grumblings. I didn't encounter it, but just be kind.
A good rule of thumb for every aspect of travel and life.
Yes.
Well, we do still have to move into your disembarkation. Back in Vancouver, what was that process like for you and your family, and how did you get home?
Yeah, disembarkation was pretty straightforward. One of the nice things, I guess, because you clear the way it works, there wasn't really any customs or immigration to go through on the way back.
No, you do customs and immigration in Canada. So once you've landed in Salt Lake City or in your first U.S. location, there is no customs or immigration. It's nice.
Yes, for the airport, that's true. But I'm thinking even just on the cruise ship, you don't have to do anything. Yeah, it was super easy to get off. The only thing I'll say, we took the SkyTrain back to the airport. There is a stop right outside the cruise port. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be super easy. We walk out of the cruise port, we go to that. And they have escalators down. And so I was like, oh, no elevator, well, escalator's fine. But they stopped us. They had volunteers up there, maybe because of all the traffic. And they're like, no, halfway down, this is regular stairs. You got to go down the block and around to the main entrance to take the elevators down. And I'm like, who builds a public transit thing right by the cruise terminal and doesn't make it accessible for people with luggage? That was the only little call out, not a huge deal. We just had to go around the block, take the elevator down, and then the SkyTrain back to the airport was super smooth. Airport was nice and easy because you go through customs on that side, and then you're just waiting for your flight. So we had no issues coming home other than we didn't want to come home.
We never do, right? Well then, Bryan, you have answered quite a few of my questions already in valiant preparation for this episode. Did you have any other notable cast interactions we didn't already highlight?
Yeah, there are two that I saved for you. So one was the last sea day. We were sitting on deck 4, and I had characters that were randomly wandering around. So I got a picture with Captain Minnie with cool Alaska background behind me because she was just roaming on deck 4, as well as Daisy. She was roaming on deck 4, so that was both cool. Also, our assistant cruise director, David, was the same assistant cruise director we had in Europe. And early on the cruise, I asked him, I said, hey, I don't see Stitch on the character meet and greets at all. Is he not on board? He said, let me check. And then he came back and said, no, Stitch is on board. I don't know if they had just not put it in the app or if they hadn't planned, but because I said something, some Stitch meet and greets showed up later on the app. Because he often comes to the kids club, even if he doesn't do regular meet and greets. But he did a regular meet and greets, so we were able to get a picture with him because he's one of my older kids' favorites. And then the other one is there's a member of the entertainment staff named Chris. And he was around in the atrium and around in a lot of the events. And he was so much fun with my family. He sang and enjoyed the music with my daughter when she did that. And then when they had the frozen deck party, which we didn't talk about at all, and I think they maybe have changed it now, it's a sing-along. The funnest thing was watching him, along with the rest of the officers that were standing in the back, sing along during the frozen sing-along. He got way into it, and it was more entertaining to watch him than the entertainers on the stage. But he was just so joyful and full of energy and like friendly and just this just incredible cast member to watch and interact with throughout the cruise. One of my favorite entertainment staff I've ever interacted with.
I love it. You always have such great cast interactions and answers to that question. My next question for you, Bryan. The Magic was your first and now most recent ship. Does the Magic still kind of meet your expectations after sailing on all these different ships and different classes?
Absolutely. That was my big question. Was Magic going to move in my ship rating to, because it was going in position 2, I thought, and I was wondering what's going to happen. I do still think the Fantasy slightly edges out the Magic for me, but it's a really tough choice because I really love the Magic. I loved the Aquadunk. I love the shows. I love the restaurants. Yeah, I have to really start nitpicking over whether I like the Fantasy or the Magic better. I think the one thing I did miss a little bit that the Fantasy has the Magic doesn't have is things like the Midship Detective Agency is kind of fun. I do love that the Aquadunk or Aqueduct on the Fantasy, even though it's not as intense as the Aquadunk on the Magic, you can enjoy it with your kids. So it's like a 2-person ride. I did kind of miss that because we did the Aquadunk together, but it's just you're waiting in line one after the other. It's not quite that same. So there's some little things, but the Magic is just such an incredible ship. It's still beautiful and good condition. If you didn't know it was older, you wouldn't know unless you go looking. Like you can find little corners that maybe look like they've aged or like the things like that. But in general, I think with the dry dock, they had redone carpeting and like the soft goods in the room were nice. The room felt very modern in terms of like well-maintained, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So yeah, Magic's still great shape, great ship.
Super random tidbit that you made me think of when talking about riding the Aqueduct with your family. You know, the only person that I've ridden any of the water coasters on the ships with?
Steve, right?
It is Steve. I have ridden the Aqua Mouse and the Aqueduct with Steve.
That is fantastic.
Fun facts for you. Well, Bryan, what is next for you and your family?
Well, we have been trying to check off all our bucket list cruises, and we missed our very maritime cruise during COVID. And so we have a cruise booked on the Destiny over Christmas. We're going to actually try sailing over Christmas, and we're going to get to experience the Destiny. So we've got a big Disney Christmas ahead of ourselves in December that we're super excited about. And then I don't know if it came out right before we left or if while we were on this cruise, they announced some additional placeholder discounts. If you have a placeholder, usually it's 10% off, and they're doing some 25% off on certain sailings. And there's a summer 2027 sailing on the Treasure. And apparently I can't leave a cruise without booking another cruise because we are now we're booked on that summer Treasure cruise. So we can finally do the Treasure and do an Eastern Caribbean itinerary, which we've never done. We'll see if everything works out for that, but that's the plan now.
God, I was looking at itineraries to get back on the Treasure because of trying to take advantage of those discounts. And I don't think it's going to work, but Moana is so good that it is worth it. Like I have not completely released the thought that I might do the Treasure either next summer or at some point because, man, I need to see Moana again.
Yeah, if you're somebody who wants to be on the Treasure prices tend to be a little bit high. Go find one of those sailings. The fact that they have someone like Kids Are Out of School at the 25% discount, like I was like, how do you pass that up? I want to get on the Treasure. And that's pretty cool that there are some discounts now. That one, though, requires you to have a placeholder. So make sure you get your placeholder.
Always important to secure that placeholder. Well, Bryan, thank you again so much for coming on and sharing your family sailing in Alaska.
Yeah, super fun to recount it. It was definitely, I think from an onboard experience, cast interaction, ship experience, this is probably my favorite cruise, which is kind of crazy to think about that, but it really is. The Alaska ports are great too. I think I liked Europe slightly better, but man, this was such an incredible sailing, and yeah, super fun to recount it with you. And you know, I know you've talked about how much you love Alaska for years, and I'm glad that we finally got to go try it out.
It's hard to not love Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again so much for coming on. We always appreciate having you on, Bryan, and thank you as always for your support and being one of our valued Patreons.
Well, thank you for keeping me entertained and help me deal with the time between cruises and help us all understand how to cruise a little smarter.
We appreciate it. Well, Christy, where can our listeners follow you?
If you would like to follow me, you can find me at Pack Your Pixie Dust all over the internet. If you would like to work with me, as Bryan said, his awesome travel agent, I would love to work with you. You can find my contact information in the show notes. Lake made me a Book with Christy link. And Lake, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram and YouTube at MouseGen, and you can follow the podcast at Instagram and Facebook at DCL Podcast, or find more information at our website, dclpodcast.com. But that is going to wrap up this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Well, that's going to wrap up the show. Once again, we want to thank Bryan for coming on and sharing his family's adventure in Alaska. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.